Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Marty on the beat. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty.
Good morning, Bellows Falls and Keene, welcome to the feed. Here we are. Spring has sprung. We got a very exciting show today. We're going to be talking with Sean Roberts about Vermont Armored Combat, a new sport coming to southern Vermont, and it's pretty amazing.
I'm just kind of grateful that sometimes we try to participate in the show. I'm kind of grateful we're not having to wear one of these today while doing the interview because it just looks imposing.
First, Marty with local events.
Local events. So for the second week at the Bellows Falls Opera House, it is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. That is going on through May 21st. Again,
Have you seen it?
I haven't yet.
I thought you were a big Planet of the Apes.
I am a big Planet of the Apes fan, but haven't been able to finagle a time to go. I know that sounds silly, but sometimes it is.
The reviews are very good. They're saying it's really good, and the CGI is so good that some people are beginning to form relationships with the apes. Like they think they're handsome or they think they're sexy, and they're wondering. Okay. Yeah, it's that far out there.
Interesting. No, I do like the storyline. I'm excited to see it, and I'm hoping we can get there before the 21st. The classic movie at the Opera House is Diner. So Andrew and Annette Day are the sponsors, and they're doing it as a benefit for the Miss Bellows Falls Diner project. So interestingly, because I'd always heard about the movie Diner, but I didn't know that much about it, so I looked it up. And it was actually the movie that launched a lot of careers. Yeah. I didn't realize that Kevin Bacon, Paul Reisner, Mickey Rourke before the bad plastic surgery, Steve Guttenberg, Daniel Stern, and Ellen Barkin. So I intrigued. I hadn't seen it, and that seems to be a good one. On Friday, May 17th at the Flatiron, it's the Summer Market Kickoff. So if you're looking to get some, there'll be vendors there with probably early season vegetables and maybe flowers and other type things, but that's happening from 2 to 5 Friday afternoon at the Flatiron. Also happening Friday afternoon, so you can kind of go from one event to the other, is at the Village Square Booksellers. Eileen Charbonneau and Eileen O'Flynn will be there with a Witches and Vampires presentation. It has to do with a book that they've written, and it's I had a piece of paper. I'm going to have to go from memory. That's not good. It has to do with the idea that when people came to the Americas, they had a kind of a folklore of witches and vampires, and how it's been translated, in how it got translated once it came across. On Saturday, May 18th, at the Westminster West Library, there is a plant and bake sale. So those are always good places if you're looking to get starter plants and you don't really want to, have a big budget or whatever. So head out to the West. I think that's right on the main street in West. I think there really is only one main street in West. And then this will lead us right in, because at the Bellows Falls Festival is happening on Saturday, June 8th. And in addition to the music, we're pretty sure we're going to have another event.
Simultaneously having Vermont Armored Combat at the festival. It'll be amazing. We have some clips so you can get a taste of this. But between the band acts, Sean's going to be doing Vermont Armored Combat, and then will probably be a booth besides, so there'll be some demonstrations going on all day. It should be an amazing event. But first, I'll just let Sean start off. What is Vermont Armored Combat?
Well, Vermont Armored Combat is a club that exists in Brattleboro, and we do armored combat sports, or what is called boohurt, which comes from a French word that kind of means to whack. French word. And it's based on old medieval tournaments that would happen where knights would come together and compete in order to be able to say, I'm worth the most. So whatever lord that is looking to hire people to be part of their army, to be part of their group, to push whatever peasants around that they plan on pushing around. That knight would be able to show I am worth the most out of all of the other knights.
So it's like
I
a
get
job
hired.
interview?
Pretty much. Yeah. For knights of that time, that was kind of
Their
like
job interview.
tournaments
They're
were like job.
practical.
Yeah, because they would show themselves off, and then some lord would see them and be like, I guess I have to pay them more than what I would be paying this other person who isn't as good at this stuff. And so that's kind of where the sport is pulling from when it comes to what it's based on. And it is a sport. It's not theatrical, which is something we get questioned about a lot. Is this like medieval times? And it's not. Because medieval times, they choreograph it. It's like a play. It's a full-on performance that they're putting on. Whereas for us, we train, we work out, just like in MMA or boxing or any other type of combat sport. We're just wearing a bunch of metal while we do it that is based off of armor that would have been worn in medieval times. And it's actually very safe compared to other things like MMA or boxing because we're wearing all this armor.
This is solid.
And even
I'm
though,
not gonna lie.
because is this a good time for the clip? Do you think?
Oh yeah, go for it. Show a little bit of what we do.
We should do, just so people can get an idea what this is, that it's not play acting. We have a clip that we did down in Brattleboro a couple weeks ago. That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's rules inside of Armored Combat to keep us safe, such as no thrusting. There's no stabbing with weapons. Everything has to be swung. For some people, they hear that and they go, oh, at least people who are in kind of the weapon fighting type of community, such as HEMA, SCA, Armored Combat, those type of things, might hear no thrusting and go, but that's a crucial part of fighting with weapons is being able to stab someone, where we say, well, we understand that. It just like any other combat sport, there are rules put in place to protect the fighters in some ways. And even though we're wearing all this metal armor, there are pockets, there are places where our armor is not.
Where you're vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah.
And a thrust is the most effective thing you could do to drastically
Stop your
injure
opponent.
someone. Yeah.
Yes.
And so even though the weapons are all blunted, they're still metal, they could still hurt a lot, and a very hard thrust in between like a plate or something could definitely break ribs and whatnot. So there's no thrusting inside of the sport. And but like I said, it's very safe compared to things like MMA and boxing because all this armor is actually doing what it's meant to do.
And the armor is manufactured to
Yes.
do that, right?
Yeah.
This isn't like antique armor that
Right.
came from a museum.
That's where I got confused. We had
Yeah.
a discussion prior.
You
Yeah.
won't get this stuff by going to a thrift store or an antique store or anything like that.
Dang.
That stuff is fake. Like a lot of the time, the stuff you see in antique stores, they're decorative pieces that were made to look nice,
Like,
but
yeah.
not necessarily used practically. Like this helmet weighs around 15 pounds, and it's got a lining of concussive padding throughout the whole thing, and which is about this thick, and then it's got about this much of this soft padding put in, and that I'm definitely not going to get hurt on the head. And I've been hit with two-handed axes that are very long, lot of leverage and power in those in the head. You can see.
As I said, there's a few dents in that.
And those just
I guess it's
happened.
good that the dents are in here
Yes.
and not anywhere else.
Those few dents actually just happened this last weekend. I just got back from an event called War Camp down with the Knights Hall in Nashville. And they were hosting this weekend-long event, and I was part of it. And it was my first time ever being in what are called melees, which are the group fights. There's one-on-one fights, and then there's group fights, which are called melees. And it was a lot of fun, learned a lot of stuff, and did some fun war games with each other where we pretended to invade a castle by having two walls and a small tower, and one group had to get in and knock over the base of the other person. And so we had a bunch of group games like that just to have fun, but then when we did our actual melee tournament as well. And that gets into why my helmet is no longer green.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because in the video, you were the green knight.
Yeah, I get called that at events because when I first started doing this, I painted everything green because I just wanted that connection to the Green Knight, the Green Man, that type of stuff. And but I recently was put onto one of the teams at the Knights Hall. And the Knights Hall have the Executioners, which are one of like the best melee teams in the world because it's an international sport where lots of different countries compete and everything like that. And the Executioners are amazing. And then they're creating the second team called the Headsmen, which were a team that they had before that they're kind of bringing back. And I am now on that team. And the problem with my armor being painted is that some international competitions prefer your armor to not be painted because out of claims that it's not historically accurate.
Yeah.
Even though there are paintings that show armor as being painted. But so because of that little bit of snootiness.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Go. What?
So they distinguished themselves by wearing some sort of heraldry,
Yes.
some sort of
Coat,
outside
like
cloth.
their
Surcoat.
Yeah.
Surcoats are what they're called.
Okay.
The big shirts.
Like with a crest, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. And so a tabard or a surcoat. A tabard are just kind of the two panels of fabric, one in the front, one in the back. Surcoat is just kind of an oversized shirt, basically, that you're wearing that has all of the heraldry.
Because I was thinking, if you're a team in melee combat and everybody is in silver armor, doesn't it get difficult to tell who you should be hitting?
Well, you
in the
can't
head?
see anyway, so I guess it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was just gonna say. Like, what is your vision? It must be is it fairly limited?
It is fairly limited
Yeah.
because especially when you're wearing these actual helmets, the helmets actually are worn on you about this far out because you're wearing all this padding, and so your face is like here compared to where your vision is, and so you've
you're
got this
actually
bar.
looking through a slot.
Right, you're looking through the slot, and that's what you're getting to see of your opponents. So you're slightly deafened a little bit because of all the padding and everything around your ears, and you're pretty blind depending upon the type of helmet you wear. There are helmets called wolf ribs, which are just picture this, but for the faceplate, it's more like a football helmet where it's just a bar with bars going along like that. So you get a lot more air, you get a lot more visibility in those. People just think that they're ugly, but they're used a lot in melees because of that visibility and being able to breathe and everything, needing to be aware of multiple opponents.
Right. Well, that makes sense because you need more, probably a lot more peripheral vision in that kind of instance where you're more, when you're one-on-one, you're probably mostly in focus with one person.
Yeah, with one-on-one, something like this, perfectly acceptable when it comes to seeing where your one opponent is. But in melees, it is important I'm fighting you, but it's good that I can still kind of see over here for when you charge at me, I'll know you're coming rather than just get sidelined. But yeah, and VAC is a club that takes part in armored combat. We've been growing recently by quite a bit over the last couple of months, and I think by the end of June, VAC will have its own melee team of 5 fighters, which will be really cool because then we'll be able to go to competitions and do all that type of stuff. So I am both on the Headsman with the Knights Hall, but I'm the team captain of VAC's melee team called the Green Mountain Hermits.
So, background question: did you just wake up one day and be like, "I think I want to have a coat of armor and fight"? Like, how did you discover this? Fall into it? Get into it? Whatever. What?
I've always liked fighting, just in general, and I know a lot of that stems from my childhood because I got beat up quite a bit when I was in elementary school. I was a weird kid and came into an elementary school as kind of the new kid, and nobody liked me. So like 0 friends between 3rd and 6th grade, and just got beat up quite a few times by groups of other boys. So that probably inspired me to be into fighting because I felt the necessity for it. Never really took part in any types of classes or anything like that, though. Got into LARP when I was younger, live action role playing, where you have like foam swords and all that type of stuff. And there's a lot of story and role play going on, but the main thing that I was usually interested in was the fighting. And got into wrestling and other things like that, and really enjoyed sword fighting and practicing that. And then, as time went on, found out about armored combat and immediately was very passionate and excited about it. Found the group that was in Vermont, VAC, and then
And they're based in Brattleboro?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Will Alloway was the founder of the team
Okay.
some years ago, and I joined in about a year ago. Yeah.
And how many people are in what
In our
do you call
club?
it? Team or club?
Yeah. We call VAC the club, and our team
Is-
are the Green
yeah,
Mountain Hermits. So our club consists of, we've currently got 4 people who have full sets of armor and ready to fight in steel. And then we've got another 6 to 7 people who are working on getting steel and do a lot of what's called soft kitting, meaning we've got like foam helmets with cages on the front and padded gloves like hockey gloves and cups and things like that, and they're doing it with like softer foam weapons to spar and practice with each
The
other.
training wheels
Yes.
portion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I saw the demonstration. It's not really soft. It's,
No.
It's more like boxing gloves.
Yeah, they're
they have the
still
same-
hitting each other. Yeah, they're definitely still hitting each other. There's still a little bit of pain involved, but it's drastically less pain than you would imagine.
Oh.
Like I get hit.
Well, that's one of the questions I had. How painful is it? My wife was wondering how bruised you were the next day after that.
Not at all.
Oh, really?
After gallery walk,
Yeah.
that's, like I said, the difference between us and things like MMA or boxing. Someone who goes into a boxing match, whether they were the winner or the loser, usually have to take weeks to recover their body from huge bruises, bloody noses, cauliflower ear, all these things. In armored combat, the day after, unless there was a huge malfunction with an armor piece that like opened up a huge gap that you then got chopped in, you're probably going to be fine. You might have a little bruise here. The things that are common are just slight abrasions from your own armor, just rubbing up against
Yeah,
you. Like
makes
I
sense.
often get little red marks here after
Because you're moving so much
right,
and-
and you're wearing this metal brig over your torso that just kind of continues doing this over the. You don't really notice it, but then the next day you just have this little red mark. But that's about it. Like I took 2-handed axes to my leg and to my head over this last weekend, and I'm no more hurt than when I'm usually just doing longsword fights.
Now, do you train? Like, do you do specific exercises or specific? I don't know. How do you train for your fights?
Some of the main things that I myself do is I work on a Pell, which is just a wooden post that is padded in some way. For me at home, I have a metal post that then just has a ring of tires going up it. And you just practice on that, going back and forth, trying your combos, trying for that. But the main thing that I would encourage people to do is get really good at short bursts, sprinting style exercises, because rounds are 60 seconds. You usually have a 60-second break, and you do that 3 times, and that equals a fight. And so for me, I would spend an afternoon just doing 3 mock fights against the Pell, where I'm just going as hard and as fast as I can for 60 seconds, beyond exhaustion, where you're just you feel like you can't do it anymore, but you just keep going. And then during my breaks, I only do 30-second breaks instead of 60. And during those 30 seconds, I actually run down my driveway and come back up. And the reason why I'm doing that is so then...
You're building up your anaerobic threshold.
Yes. So then when I'm in an actual fight and I get 60 seconds to rest, I'm standing in that corner going, normally I'd be running up and down a hill right now for 30 seconds. So I'm doing great now. And so it really helps. So that's the difference. You're not getting on a bicycle and going for hours for this sport. That's not really the techniques used. It's short bursts of energy that you need to be able to.
But is there technique within the sword?
Oh yes, very, very much so. Like it looks brutish when you watch some of the fights, and depending upon the style of fight that you're doing, it's meant to be. But a lot of the time, if we're doing longsword fighting, which is what our group is well known for, our VAC group.
Was that what we had? Was that longsword fighting?
There
Okay.
was longsword during one of them, and then there was also sword and buckler in another one.
That's the
Small
tiny,
round shield and short sword. And but our group is really well known for longsword. We're pretty good at that, and Will trains us in that. And in longsword, I would say that is the most finesse and skill-based thing, that because there's very little grappling, very little of the punching and the kicking, all that type of stuff. So the striking and blocking with that weapon becomes very important, because the whole point of a duel is to rack up points by striking your opponent.
Okay, that was my next question. How do you win?
Yeah. In a duel, that's it. You get those 3 rounds, and I'm striking at you, you're striking at me, and whoever has the most points at the end win.
Yeah.
You can't hit someone with the flat of your blade, and it has to be a strong enough hit. So if my sword is like right here, and I'm just kind of going like that against you, that doesn't count. You have to actually make good impact.
We're
on
like
someone.
3 minutes, so should we watch the other clip?
We should go to the next clip,
Okay.
because it demonstrates some of those things you were talking about. There's
Okay.
some really good strikes with the long sword. It starts with axes and the bucklers, and then it goes to long sword, and then it ends with a small melee you did, where you take a pretty good hit in the back.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, let's try the next clip, and maybe we can talk a little bit after. So that was really a good example of what you were talking about. There were some axes involved, some long sword strikes, and a little bit of a melee at the end.
Yeah, we did that little 3-person melee just to spice things up right at the end of the gallery walk.
Yeah, that was really interesting, because the person that was fighting with the axe, that was his first time actually in an actual meet or actual combat.
Yeah.
That was really fascinating to see. He did really well too. Yeah.
What I think is interesting, and your wife pointed it out, is if you watch the videos and you watch the expression on people's faces.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, that's what
Like the engagement. I think the level of engagement is kind of fascinating.
The crowd transformed, because, and I hope you'll come to the BFF, but what it was like, Sean was there and they were putting their armor on and everybody was getting ready, and people were walking up with their kids and they were sort of like, oh, this is cute, this is going to be some guys dressed up as knights. And then this started and people were like, oh my God. And then by the time you did that last match, people were cheering and yelling and going green, 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 or whoever they were cheering for. And it was really, they really got involved, and it was really exciting.
Because it must be like you had music playing, but there must be. I mean, obviously there's clanging, there's
Oh,
noise,
yeah, you're
so you
hearing,
real that you get that it's real. Right?
Yeah, all the clanging
Yeah.
that's on there is the clanging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have less than a minute.
Okay.
How do they get in touch with you? How do you? If someone's interested, someone sees it, they want to join. What do they need to do?
Reach out to me through email at worldunderwonder@gmail.com. It's popped up multiple times on the screen already. And or reach out to us over our Facebook, Vermont Armored Combat. You can find us there. And we're going to be at a lot of events in June. Like there's an event that's going to be down in Nashua on June 1st. That's done at the Knights Hall. They have a website that you can look up as well. There's the Gallery Walk on June 7th again from 5 until 9, and we'll be fighting from 5:30 to 7:30. There's the Bellows Falls Music Festival, June 8th from 1 until 10 p.m. that we'll be at, and then there's also Mutton and Mead Roads to Revelry, which will be down in Deerfield, Mass., I believe, and that's on June 15th from 4 until 10.
What?
Perfect.
Good.
Well,
Well, thank you, Sean.
That's the show.
And that's
Okay.
it.
All right.
We'll see you
Bye,
next week.
community.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music.